still liquid underneath, kept flowing, and eventually a few points of interest in the area before we head inside. This Vatnshellir Glacier is also a volcano. It is a stratovolcano which still has an active magma chamber underneath, but it has not erupted in over 1,800 years. So we have nothing to worry about. Snow pillars on the coast over there is what used to be a volcano. The pillars themselves is the lava that's solidified on the inside of the mountain, and the rest of it was washed away by the sea over a very long time, just water erosion. And since the basalt rock, the basalt lava is harder, it's the water hasn't easily arrived. Within the cave, we have rules. There are animal to protect the area as much as possible. You have to leave a track behind as well as take anything from the cave with you. And in case you have something in your pockets, you can put them up or zip them. I think was where the name of the entire cave comes from. It's called Vatnshellir. It translates to water cave. It was named by some farmers that used to live here a long time ago because they would use it as a water source for their animals.
So once it melted, it stays like a lake?
No, deeper down, the snow stays all year round because it's cold enough for the snow to just stay. Such a small area, we will not be spending too much time here, but I just like to point out that the hole we entered into is completely natural. We did not have to drill it out or dig it out in any way. It just collapsed when the cave was still hot, when it was still forming. And an entrance from the ceiling is called the skylight. This is the only known entrance to this cave, so we'll also be going back up this way. We'll now head towards the first room, which is right here. This is the only place in the cave where you have to duck down, so just watch your head, be very careful. Once you make it up the steps on the other side, you should be able to stand back up, and after that the cave is way more open. Now we are all in the first room of the cave. This area is called Father's Wall. It translates to Father's place, or Father's room. And Baldur was a half-human who was meeting with the other trolls, establishing rules. And the last time the trolls had a meeting, they allowed us to have tours into their cave on one condition. We don't leave any trash behind, and they'll be allowed to eat us. Of course, every place is nice, and there's a few troll stories about it. But folklore aside, this room gives us a lot of information on the lava that's created the whole cave. You know that it came from that corner. Unfortunately, the tunnel collapsed soon after it formed, which is why you can't see any further. But there's a continuation of the tunnel on the other side of the wall. So it keeps going. The shape of this room is also very unique because lava tubes, like the name suggests, usually look like tubes or narrow halls. But this room is very wide and open. That is because the lava, in a way, got stuck here for a short time and had time to build up to a lava lake where we're standing before it could keep flowing. All of the white, sparkly things you can see all over the ceiling and on most walls throughout the cave, reflecting the lights from the flashlights, are colonies of bacteria, which have only been discovered here and nowhere else in the world, which makes them very important to protect. They are the main reason that we use flashlights in the cave instead of just lighting up with some spotlights, because long exposure to light is harmful to it. It also doesn't need any plants or animals to feed off, because it feeds off of the minerals that are within the rocks. The bacteria is also the main reason that we would ask you not to touch the walls too much, because you might scrape the bacteria right off, and it could take a very long time for it to rebuild itself. And also because a lot of the walls and rocks are very sharp, so you can easily cut your finger if you touch them. Of course, I should mention that the bacteria is harmless to us, so even if some water drips on you from the ceiling, you will not get sick. I've been on many tours and I haven't gotten sick yet, so you'll be fine. I'll give you a moment to walk around this room. Feel free to ask me questions if you have any, and whenever one is ready, we can continue. I'll just ask you not to climb the two rocks over there on the top.
Oh, okay.
But you're free to go anywhere else. So most of the bits that reflect the light from the flashlights are the bacteria I mentioned before, but some rocks are just wet. So it's both the bacteria and just the water. The ceiling is very shiny.
Yeah.
See that most of you are almost ready. A few more things before we leave. You might be wondering how such a large ceiling is not breaking down under its own weight, even though it is pretty thin. Right there in the middle, it's only about 2 meters thick. But it is at no risk of collapsing because of its shape, shaped like a dome, which makes it incredibly stable. And before we leave, I'm going to use my light at a stronger setting for pictures at the entrance, if anyone is interested.
Okay.
Past this point, right here next to me, there's a small pile of bones that comes from an Arctic fox that fell into the cave about 50 to 60 years ago and could not find his way back out. That was unfortunately way before the staircase was built. And these bones are the only sign of an animal we have ever found in the cave. I'll just remind you to watch your head and be careful as you make it underneath. Hallway. This area is called Vatnshellir, which translates from Icelandic to corridor of mythical creatures or fantastic creatures. And the name comes from all the strange shapes and possibly faces you may see on the wall, depending on how you point your light or how good your imagination is. But this tunnel gives us even more information on the lava. We know that once it broke free from the first room, started flowing in this direction at about 30 kilometers per hour, creating all of these unique shapes. You can also see that in the color right here on the rock towards the bottom, it's a bit dark brown. By the staircase, you probably noticed it was bright red. It comes from high amounts of iron that are within the rock. So all the different colors and shades you see depend on the minerals that are within the rock, as well as the speed and conditions at which the lava cooled down and solidified. And also it could change if the lava goes back to liquid and then back to solid multiple times before it settles. You also see that the pattern here, as well as the color, looks completely different than the rest of the wall, especially with the two lines towards the bottom, which stretch across this entire room on both sides. That's because as the tunnels were draining of lava very quickly, it released gas, which was so hot that it remelted the walls again, changing the color and of course the shape into these drippy, spiky patterns up there. You'll see more of these spikes throughout the rest of the tunnel. As you're looking around, you probably have noticed many cracks in the walls, like this one, or the huge crack in the middle of the ceiling. Of course, it does not mean that the cave is collapsing. Actually, it kind of means the opposite. These cracks are called contraction cracks, and they form when the cave is still hot, still cooling down. And they protect the cave from earthquakes, because during an earthquake, these cracks give the cave room to move around and shake, instead of just breaking down. And thanks to these cracks, this cave survived many earthquakes since it formed, so we can be grateful for that. On the opposite wall behind you, there are two stone pillars side by side. We call these the twins. Right there. And we believe that they were not actually formed by lava dripping from the ceiling with the stalagmites in the first room, but rather that they were pushed up from the bottom by high amounts of pressure that was building up when the cave was still cooling down. But that is just a theory for now, we don't know for sure. It's just that we think they look too strange to be formed from drops, especially the one on the right has a very narrow point in the middle, and the one on the left has a rock that branches out to the left, which is pretty strange if it was formed from drops. And before we continue, I'm going to highlight the rest of the tunnel like I did before with pictures. Small areas, openings and cracks. That way the water doesn't wash it off from the ceiling. So it's protected. Because the water, like I mentioned before, never stops dripping in this cave. No matter if it rains or not. Because it takes so long for the water to soak through the meters of dirt and into the cave that it would have to not rain for probably months for it to stop dripping completely, which, as I'm sure all of you know, doesn't happen on Iceland. So you can follow me to the end of the tunnel. I'll just ask you to stay close to the rope because the other side is way more loose rocks. The ground here is way more even and flat. Adjust to the light again. Of course, all the different colors depend on the minerals that we mentioned before. The yellow coming from sulfur dioxide, and most of the purple coming from magnesium. And like I said before, this is the deepest part of the cave. We are 35 meters underground. And this is my personal favorite part of the cave, for many reasons, mostly because of its mystery. This room leaves us with a lot of questions, because it breaks a few rules that typical lava tubes have, where it takes a sudden 14 meters drop where the staircase is, and then turns 90 degrees a different direction, which is pretty unusual. Of course, turn the flashlight back on at the end. The first clue on how that could happen is on the opposite wall of the staircase. If you pay attention to the wall that the staircase is connected to on the right, you can see first of all a different color, a bit of red, like formations that look like lava flowing down the wall. It tells us that this room is slightly older than the other two, since the lava was flowing freely into an already open area. Which doesn't really make sense that this room was already here since the lava was flowing from the other end. But there are many theories on how this room could have formed. Some people say that it was a separate lava river, maybe from the same eruption, maybe from an older one. which created this burst, and then the second tunnel connected to it from the top by coincidence. And some people believe that it was a large earthquake which created this room, because the formations in the walls look nothing like the second tunnel. There's no pattern, no spikes, nothing like that. But both of those are just theories for now. We don't have an answer yet. Okay, look at the other wall. These spiky formations have many names, usually called stone bats or shark teeth. And they form the same method as the wall at the beginning of this tunnel. Lava releases the gas melts the wall, it turns to liquid and tries to float down, but it just solidifies back to stone before it can detach from the wall. So it just stays in this drippy and very sharp pattern. Before we continue from here, we can also have a nice view of the two ledges towards the top on both sides. You can see that the tunnel has the shape of the letter T. You can also see these ledges all around in the first room. That's because the lava that was closer to the bottom was hotter, so it kept melting its way deeper. Meanwhile, the lava that was closer to the top was colder. It couldn't melt its way through the rocks anymore to the sides. Instead, it kept flowing further to the sides, increasing the width of the ceiling and creating the ledge. From here, there's only one more stop before we make it back to sunlight. Pulling up to a large bubble and then exploding, leaving a small crater behind. Here, the bubbles could not fight the surface tension of the lava because it was already too cold. So instead, it just solidified into shapes of bubbles. If you look closer, the black rock above the red, you will see hundreds of small bubbles and spheres. Pockets of gas. Of course, all of the toxic gases that have been trapped within these bubbles have filtered out long ago, so we have nothing to worry about. But these toxic gases released after eruptions are usually the main reason that people can't explore new caves and can just cool down, because they have to wait for the gases to filter out, which could take a very long time depending on how large the entrance is or how many entrances there are. In this cave, there's only one that we know of. It's pretty small, so it had pretty bad airflow. The gases probably took a very long time to get out. From here, the next stop is on the surface. I just have to warn you that now that we are used to the darkness, it is very bright outside. Keep your eyes, time to adjust, and definitely don't look at the sun.
Okay.
If there is, you might be too bright. We'll see. I'm not sure. That is it from me. Thank you all for coming. It was a pleasure having you. When you're ready, you can return your helmets inside. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.